Finally, let me mention one critical initiative that lies ahead. Going forward, the Oversight Board and government have an opportunity to work collaboratively by consolidating many of the financial reforms in the fiscal plan into a financial management agenda that enables a path to institutionalize financial management best practices within government and support a financially sustainable Puerto Rico. The effort consists of initiatives at the foundational level, central and supporting, laying a foundation for improving financial management, providing a clear leadership structure, capable workforce, modern technology, all essential to implementing the other initiatives. The actions will also help prevent waste, fraud, abuse, make more effective use of the island's assets, and professionalize the management of government resources. Importantly, this will help the government comply with conditions of promesa for the termination of this oversight board. And by harnessing and combining these efforts, the government will be best positioned for the future. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I am truly grateful for the support of the board members, and I am truly grateful for the trust that you placed in me. Together, I think we've done a remarkable amount of work over the past 5 years, even in the face of hurricanes, earthquakes, pandemics, multiple changes in government at the executive level, the local level, the legislative. I'm extremely thankful for the support of Governor Pierluisi, Secretary of State Marrero, the legislative leaders, House Speaker Hernandez, Senate President Dalmau, and all of the other government executives and employees that work passionately, day in and day out, to make Puerto Rico a better place to live and constantly set in motion a better future for all. I'm also grateful for those who have come before this group of government employees and previous governors. I am extremely grateful to the people of Puerto Rico for what has been a difficult and complex 5 years, but I've always felt the support of people who understood that we could put a better Puerto Rico in place if we worked together. I'm humbled every day by my incredible staff. Please stand for a moment. These people do the hard work at the Oversight Board, and they support our important mission. I may be stepping down next week, but I know how remarkable each and every one of you is and how you've dedicated yourselves to the Oversight Board's mission and to Puerto Rico's future, and I am extremely grateful. Thank you all. I'm going to take a moment to also thank the people of Puerto Rico, the governor, the Speaker, the President of the Senate, the business community, for enormous support of Ukraine and Ukrainians at this hard time. I appreciate your executive orders, the lighting of Fortaleza, of Capitolio, of Distrito in blue and yellow, and Popular. I have received thousands of messages from residents of this island, and I cannot tell you how warm it made me feel to know that you were praying for the people of Ukraine and for peace. And I continue to ask you for those prayers because we continue to need them. Let me end where I started today. The journey towards Puerto Rico's economic renewal and growth is underway. It's happening right now. And hope has been restored. I look forward to nothing but the brightest future for Puerto Rico in the years to come. Thank you, Chairman Skill.
Thank you, Natalie. Needless to say, it's a very sad moment to have turned over the microphone to Natalie in this capacity for the last time. I'd like to make a few remarks which will be redundant, I think, after all we've just heard. But I'd like to make a few remarks before I open the floor up to public comments. When the 6 other original board members and I were appointed to the Oversight Board back in 2016, we very quickly hired outside lawyers, strategic advisors, and a general counsel. But we spent months, as a few people in this room know, we spent months trying to find an executive director. Although we interviewed some very impressive candidates, none seemed quite the right fit for the job. They didn't have the right skill set, they didn't have the right temperament, or they were too closely identified with one political party or the other. Then we were told to talk to Natalie. Natalie was thousands of miles away at the time and just a little bit busy. After graduating from DePaul University and from the Kennedy School at Harvard, and then working in the State Department in Washington, Natalie had spent most of the next 25 years in Ukraine, a country most of us knew just a little bit about before the last month, and we all know a lot about now. She had started out in Ukraine as chief of the economic section of the U.S. Embassy. After the Ukrainian Revolution of 2014, the new prime minister asked Natalie to be Minister of Finance. She was an obvious choice, given her skill set, but there was one small problem. Natalie wasn't a citizen of Ukraine. Fortunately, that problem was easily solved. They quickly made Natalie a citizen, and she took over as Minister of Finance. During Natalie's tenure as Minister of Finance, she arranged for a $40 billion loan from the IMF. Ukraine was in financial distress then, as Puerto Rico has been here. The $40 billion loan was the largest ever IMF loan at that point in time. In addition to arranging that loan, she achieved a major restructuring of Ukraine's debt, a 20% haircut after the largest bondholder had insisted there would be no haircut at all. She had recently stepped down as Minister of Finance when we contacted her. Puerto Rico is spectacularly beautiful and has wonderful weather, as we all know here. But I don't think that's what led Natalie to Puerto Rico. I think it was the challenge and the opportunity to help alleviate suffering that was terrible here on the island, even before the hurricanes, even before the earthquakes, even before the pandemic. It was the challenge in helping to alleviate that suffering and helping rebuild the economy and provide a fresh start. That's precisely what Natalie has done for the last 5 years. The original board members and the current board members both have a remarkable amount of relevant experience, but we all also have full-time jobs. We needed a quarterback who could manage things on a day-to-day basis and make sure the promise of promesa is fulfilled. Our executive director needed to be experienced, tough, smart, tireless, and creative, because as all of you here know well, politics in Puerto Rico is not for the faint of heart. Natalie has been all of those things and more. She's a numbers person and a tough negotiator, but she's also a mom and a person, people, if I see you guys tearing up, there's no hope for me. She's experienced, tough, she's a numbers person and a tough negotiator, but she's also a mom and a person people instinctively and rightly trust. I suspect Natalie felt that her experience as a mother came in handy when she had to deal with the 7 of us. When people look back at Natalie's time as executive director of the Oversight Board, the accomplishment many will think of first is the restructuring of Puerto Rico's debt. The Commonwealth's debt restructuring was the largest public debt restructuring in American history, resolving $33 billion of debt and over $50 billion of unfunded pension obligations. Natalie didn't achieve this all on her own. As we've heard, our advisors and staff are and were extraordinary, and those of us on the board were also directly involved in many of the negotiations. But it's hard to imagine the restructuring, and even harder to imagine a restructuring that is such a great victory for Puerto Rico, leaving only $7.4 billion of ongoing debt, down from $33 billion to $7.4, without Natalie's persistence and grace under pressure. Less dramatic, but equally important, Natalie deserves more credit than anyone for the fact that the Puerto Rico government is now living within its means for the first time in many years. This year is likely to be the first truly balanced budget in many years, and may even be one of the 4 consecutive balanced budgets that's required before the board is dissolved. It hasn't always been smooth. Natalie and a high-level government official under a previous governor could sometimes be heard screaming at each other from behind the closed door of her office. But she got the job done. Natalie is a budgetary wizard, the likes of which I've never seen before and do not expect to see again. I could go on and list some of Natalie's many other accomplishments over the past 5 years. The other debt restructurings that you know about and have just heard about, the dramatically increased transparency in the government, but you get the point. After her work in Ukraine, Natalie was referred to as the Iron Lady of Ukraine and as, quote, everybody's favorite technocrat. When a statue is erected in her honor here in Puerto Rico, as I suspect there will be one at some point, I'm not sure exactly what clever label will be written at the bottom, but certainly it will make reference to the fact that she came, she saw, and she worked tirelessly to help pave the way for a better future for every Puerto Rican and for everyone who cares about this island. I'm grateful to have been here to watch Natalie in action for the past 5 years. Thank you, Natalie, for everything that you've done, and Godspeed for the important work you have ahead.